To create our scene, we'll start by first of all deleting everything. So I'll hit A and X and then choose delete. Then I'll hit Shift A and I'll add a cube. We are creating a chocobo, but I'm going to start with a cube, and that is because I want to create a mesh, a spherical mesh that has quads instead of one that has triangles. Like for example, if you Shift A and you go to the mesh options, we have the UV sphere, we have the icosphere. So these are spheres that you might assume that we can use, but of course the mesh itself, the topology has triangles. So if you, for example, add the UV sphere and I move it, I'm trying to avoid the triangles at the top here because I want to use displacement. I don't want to have any pinching in my mesh. And of course, if I choose to use the icosphere, in itself, it's made up of triangles. So again, that's something that I'm avoiding. So I'll just delete this. So with this cube added, I'm going to go to the modifiers. So I'll select it, go to modifiers, go to add modifier, and then we'll choose generate, and then we will choose subdivision surface. Then once we add the subdivision surface, I'd like to increase the levels, that is the resolution of this shape, to 3 in the viewport and 3 in the render. So I'll increase this to 3 and in the render to 3. Then you'll see we do have the quads that I was talking about. These are squares. And again, that's because I want to displace this mesh, and I'm going to displace it both using the displacer, but majorly because I want to displace it using displacement when I am texturing. So that's something that I'm keeping in mind as I create the model. So now that I have decided on the levels that I need for the viewport and the render, I can apply this subdivision modifier to the mesh. So I can click on this drop down, click on apply. Then the next thing that I'll do, I'll tab in and I'll get into edit mode, and in here select everything. So I'm in the points mode, the vertex mode. So you select everything, and then when you select everything by hitting A, and then I want to scale this down. So I'll hit S and then I'll input a value, so 0.012. Then I'll hit enter, so it becomes smaller than what it is. Then I will click on the period key on the numerical keypad so that we can zoom in. So there's our shape, our mesh. Then I'll tab out, I'll right click, then I'll click on shade smooth. Then the next thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to make this shape a bit more irregular, because right now it is quite circular. So I'll click on add modifier, and then instead of generate this time, we'll go to deform and I will choose displace. So I'll click on displace, and of course it makes our sphere to be quite huge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temper the strength. So I'll input, let's say 0.005 for now, and then I will choose to add or to use a texture. So I'll click on where it says new, so I'll click on that, and then on the farthest end here we have this button. So you can click on this button, which if you hover over it, it says show texture in texture tab, or you can just go to the texture tab yourself, right? So if I go to modifiers, I click this, it's the same thing. So in the texture tab, we're going to change the type, and I'm going to use clouds. And then we're going to change the size. So here you can experiment, see what works for you. So I just want the shape to be a bit irregular. So maybe I could use, let's say, this is 0, right? So this is 0. Makes it look a bit strange. And of course, if you choose to use quite a low value, this is 0.001. If you choose to use this low value, you would need to have added another subdivision surface. So if I go to the modifiers I click on the add modifier, then generate subdivision surface. So you will need to add that, right? So let me turn mine off in the editor, in the display, in the renderer. Let me go back to texture, and then I can input, let's say 0.4. Then remember, you can hold down the shift key and drag to adjust your values. So if you want to have a particular way that the values are being adjusted, you can. So here we can input like, let's say 0.01. Maybe this is too irregular, maybe 0.04. Okay, so I want it to be regular, but I don't want it to be like crazy irregular. So 0.04 is what I'll use. So this is something that you should experiment yourself. I'm not one to be a stickler for values, like use this particular value or use that particular value. I prefer that you kind of experiment and see what works for your scene, right? So let me get rid of the subdivision actually. So up to this point, we have our chocolate ball, right? So in the collection on the top right, I've renamed this. So I'll just call this scene underscore objects. And then I'll call this the choco ball. And we have our chocolate ball, right? So as simple as that. Next, let's create the sugar granules. So the granules that I would like for the choco ball to have on top of the surface. So I'll click on scene collection over here in the outliner, that is on the top right, and then I'll go to the farthest right where we have this icon. Click on it to create a new collection, and then I'll double click on it and I'll call it sugar underscore granules. And then I will right click, I'll select on this icon, the box icon, right click, and I'll change the color for this to something else. So for the sugar granules, we'll start with a cube. So I'll hit Shift A. Make sure you're selected or you've selected the collection so that whatever we create gets into that collection. So I'll click on cube. It's a really large cube, and then on the bottom left here, come and I'll reduce the size of this to something really small. So if you can't see this, we can hit Z. Then we can choose wireframe. Then I can take this even lower, like 0.05. That's still large. Let's say 0.001. So something like that, right? So it's it depends on what type of granules you'd like. You could have ones that are really tiny. You could have some that are not as tiny as this. So maybe 0.05, maybe something like that. Yeah. So yeah. So I'll call this sugar granule. Okay. Then I can duplicate it. So with it selected, I can hit Shift D, duplicate. Then I can hide the original one. Click on this eye icon. Then on this other one that remains, I can get into isolation mode. And then, of course, you'll notice when I zoom in, whatever I need to see kind of disappears. So we'll go to View. And in here, look for Clip Start, and we'll reduce it to the minimum, which is 0.001 meters. Then I'll tab in. Then I'll select these 2 points. And then I'll hit GZ. Then I can hit Control R, add an edge loop. Then I can select these points, GX, right? I just want to have like an irregular shape, okay? Then of course, I can bring this other one back, although you're not going to be able to see them at the same time. Of course, I'm in isolation mode, so I'll exit isolation mode by clicking on the backslash. So I have the original one, and then I have this one. So I think 2 are enough, but you can add other granules, as many as you'd like. I could duplicate the second one, so Shift D, then enter isolation mode by clicking on backslash. I could tab in and Control R. Actually, not there. Let me undo that. Let me actually escape, not even undo. Let me undo now. So Control R. Then I can come in here, GZ this up. Then I'll move this back, so that's GX, right? Then I could select this GZ. This as well, GX. Okay, then I can tab out, exit isolation. Then another thing I could do is I could tab into this third one, hit A to select everything, then S, Z to scale things. And I can tab out. So if you go back to item and I select all of this, I just want to make sure that the scale is set to 1. I don't want it to be adjusted to lower than 1 or higher than 1. Then what we can do next is to create another collection. So nothing is selected here in the scene collection. I'll create a new collection and I'll call this coconut pieces. I'll just hide this collection for the sugar granules. Then for the coconut pieces, I will select this cube. I'll select the collection, sorry. Then I'll right click and change the color to something else. Then I'll hit Shift A, and this time I'll add a plane. And then, of course, I'm in wireframe. So I'm just using wireframe so that I can see where they're being placed. So I hit 1. Actually, no, let me not hit 1. Let me undo that actually. Let me deselect. Select this plane again. Hit tab first, then 1 to get into vertices, then S. Then I can input like 0.02. And then now I can now scale in myself. Okay. Then I can hit backslash to get into isolation mode, go to the top view. Then I can start scaling it again. Then I can start adjusting this. So that's SX. Okay. Then I can hit Control R, add a loop there, then select this point, move it, select this, maybe scale it down. Okay. Then I'll exit edit mode. Then I'll call this coconut. It's a coconut shred. So then I'll duplicate, so I can hit Shift D, then select the duplicate, tab in, and then could scale this down even further, move it, that's GY, right? Select this, move it, this as well. Okay. So if I hit Z solid, we have 2 pieces of coconut shreds, if I could call them that. So you could add as many as you like. I could add another really thin one. So I could duplicate from the first one. So select the first one, Shift D, go to the top view, then tab in, Z wireframe, hit A. Actually, this is what I want to scale down. So that's SY0. Then this SY0. Okay, then I want it to be really thin, so I just want to scale it on the Y. So SY, really slim piece. Then maybe on one end I could just move it up just a bit so that it's a bit irregular, right? And I think 3 are enough. I don't need more than that. Okay. Then the next thing would be to create another collection. So I'll select scene collection, then click on this new collection. And for this is for peanuts. So I'll call it peanut pieces. Okay. Then I'll exit isolation mode, of course. Then I will, from the peanuts, or to create a peanut, I'll start with a basic shape. So we could start with a cube. Hit Shift A, mesh, cube. And it's quite tiny, as you can see. So I'll enter isolation mode. Then I'll hit Z solid. Then tab in S Z. Right? Then I'll hit Control R, add an edge loop there. I'll go to the top view, Z wireframe. Then I'll move this as well. Then Control R, and I'll place this here. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is Z solid. I'll select this edge. So I'll hit 2, select this edge, and then I'll hit spacebar. Then I will search for bevel edges. And I'll click and drag. Then I'll drag my middle mouse up just a step, and then I'll click to accept. Then I'll select this edge, I'll move it down, G, Z. Okay. Then we can smoothen this. So I'll select it, we'll go to the modifiers, add modifier, and then I will add subdivision surface. And then if I right click on it, shade smooth, this is what we have. Then I can increase the levels in the viewport. So it's just a tiny piece of peanut, right? So I'll just call this peanut. Okay. Then I'll change the color of this. So I'll just right click on that box icon. So I'm not going to work too much on this because it's not something that we're going to see real close. But this will work. This will work quite fine, right? Then I can hit tab. Then I can select this edge. Then GZ just to pull this out a bit, just to get that nice curvature, as you can see. Okay. Then I can select this edge over here. If I just turn off the subdivision surface in the edit mode, I can select this edge. And then GZ. I can tab out. Okay, so that's what we have. So we have our peanut. So far we have all the elements that we need. We have the choco ball, the granules, the coconut pieces, and the peanut pieces. So the next thing would be to distribute all of these onto the choco ball. So I'll exit isolation and we have our choco ball, right? Let's compile our scene together. So I'll start by adding a plane. So I'll hit Shift A, plane, but I want it to be under scene object. So I'll select that collection first, Shift A, plane. Okay. Then I'll call this table. Then where we have this icon that looks like a filter, click on this drop down, activate the selectable option. And I don't want the table to be selectable. So once I turn on the selectable option, and then I come to this particular object and click on that selectable icon for that object, that means that I cannot be able to select it. And that's what I want. Then I'll again hit Shift A, and then this time I will add a cube. But if I go to wireframe, you can see I do have a cube, but it's quite small. So I'll increase its size, but not like too crazy. Say something like that. And I want to use it to create like a wood surface that I'm going to place the chocolate balls on. So now that I have this, I think I can, I think this was fine. I think I can tab in, then hit Z, solid. Then I can go to, let's say, the front view, Z wireframe. Okay. Then I can move this to G, Z. Okay, so somewhere there. Then I can increase its size, so that is SX. And then I'll hit 1, select this, the top, GZ. I don't want it to be really quite thick. I want it to be thick, but not like crazy thick. Then I'll hit A, then SY. Okay. Maybe I made it too long on the x-axis, so SX, something like that. Then I can hit Z, then go to solid, then I can tab out. I'll select this, then I'll call it wood surface. Then I'll go to its modifier settings and I will add a bevel. So under generate, I'll choose bevel, and then I'll go to the overlays and I'll choose wireframe, and then I'll reduce the amount. So I'm holding down shift and dragging. So even as I drag, I think the minimum it allows me to have is 0.001. So I'll need to now manually input what I want. So 0.0005. I can go lower than that. Let's do like 2. And then I can increase the segments maybe to 2. Okay. Then once we have this, I think our scene is ready for assembly. So now I need to decide where is the camera going to be at. So I need to add a camera. So I'll deselect in the collections window. Then I'll click to create a new collection. Then I'll rename it. I'll call it render. Then I will change the color of this. So just right click and then pick whatever color you want to represent that collection. Then I want my camera to be, let's say, here. So I'll hit Shift A, and then I'll add a camera. And then to make this my view, I'll hold down Control Alt 0, and that's the 0 on the numerical keypad. You'll notice that everything disappears, and that means that we need to go and change a few settings in the camera. So with the camera selected, we'll go to the camera settings over here, and then we will change the clip start. So we lower this value, and then we're going to see our scene. With the camera still selected, I'll go to output and I'll change the resolution to something else. I'll say maybe 1000 by 1000. Okay. Then the other thing I could do would go to the render options, change the render engine from Eevee to Cycles. And then I'll change the viewport maximum samples to 256. And then I'll do the same for the render samples. So we have the render maximum samples 256. Okay. Then for better framing, we can go to view, and that is this view option on the side of the 3D view. And then we can choose camera to view. But before we do that, I'd like to move this particular chocoball up. So select it, then GZ, and I'll make it like just somewhere there, right? So maybe I could do like wireframe, then GZ, something like that. Okay, then Z solid. So we have the chocolate ball, right? So if I get into the camera, at this point, I feel like this is okay, but we can still make changes as we continue setting this up, right? So I would like to light this, but before we do, I'd like to use the granules, the coconut pieces, the peanut pieces, to kind of be populated on the surface of the chocolate ball. So with this chocolate ball selected, and our modifiers, we're just using one, choose displace. So we could choose to apply that, or you could leave it. The choice is yours. So I'll leave it. So I'll select this chocolate ball. I'll hit Shift D to duplicate, and then I'll rename it. So I could call it chocolate ball geonodes, or rather pieces, instead of calling it geometry nodes. So this object, this chocolate ball that I've just duplicated, we're going to use it to populate the sugar granules, the coconut pieces, and the peanut pieces. So I'll unhide this, but of course later I'll just hide them because they're not going to be relevant. So I'll just bring this window up a bit, then I'll get out of the camera view, just choose a good view of this, right? So with these choco ball pieces selected, click on add modifier, and under add modifier I will choose geometry nodes, right? So it's added. Then in this window here where we have the timeline, I'll go to the farthest top left, click on this drop down, and I will add a geometry node editor. Then I can click on new here in this window, or I can go to the modifiers and click on new. So they all do the same thing. So I'll just click on new, and we have our geometry inputs. Oh, sorry, yeah, the group input and the group output. So I hit Shift A, and then distribute. I'll search for distribute. I'm looking for distribute points on faces. Then I'll connect it after the geometry input. So as you can see, I'm not seeing anything, and that's because I have a really tiny object. So the density of 10 is basically not computing on my results. So I could change it to something higher, let's say 1,000. Okay, maybe let's say 500. Okay, so let me leave it at 1,000 actually. Then the next node I need to add. So distribute points on faces just creates points on the surface of the mesh. So on the faces that I have, each face will have a point. Then we have these points, and these points need to kind of have copies placed on them, and those copies are either the sugar granules or the coconut pieces or the peanut pieces. So those are the instances. So I'll hit Shift A, and then I'll search for instance on points, and I'll connect it after distribute points on faces. So notice that this is going from green to green, green to green, green to green. So whenever you're making your connections, ensure that you're looking at the data types that you're using. So this is for the geometry, so that's why they're green. So now that I have this instance on points, I need an instance. So some of the sugar granules, and think here we have like 3 of them. And if I select each one of them, as you can see, the scale is 111, so that's fine. So I'll select the choco ball pieces again. Then I'll hit Shift A, and then I'll search for collection info. Okay, so the reason I'm using collection info is because I want the setup to consider my whole collection that has the sugar granules instead of a single object. If I was using a single object, I would use the object if I search for it, the object info node. So if I'm just using one singular object, I'll use the object info. But since I want the entire collection to be considered, I would need to use collection info. So I'll just delete this. So in the collection info node, I'll define the collection, choose sugar granules. And then I'll choose to separate children, and I will reset the children. Then on the instances, I'll connect this to instance. So again, these data types are similar. So geometry to geometry, right? So now that I have this, you can see I'm only seeing like a few pieces, like 2. So I need to increase my density. So I could give it like a really high value, let's say 10,000 instead of 1,000. Now I have my granules, right? But they're quite boring. So if I bring back the chocolate ball, as you can see, they're quite boring to look at, to be honest. And I think something happened. I think I had applied the scale. So if I hit Control A and then I say apply all transforms, yeah. So I had applied all the transforms for the chocolate ball pieces, but I did not do that for the chocolate ball. So that's where they were looking a bit off, right? So here we have our sugar granules, but they don't look that interesting, right? So to add a bit more interest, here's what we're going to do. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just after this collection info node, I'm going to add a node after it, right? So I'll hit Shift A and I'm going to add a material node. So set material. So we're going to create a material, but we're not going to apply directly to the sugar granules like we would. Of course, I'm going to create one material in these sugar granule meshes, but to apply that, for that to be visible, you need to come into the geometry nodes setup and be able to copy, or to set up, not even copy, but to assign that material here for that to read. So now I need to make a few changes, right? So I'll hit Shift A, and one of the first things that I need to do is I want to randomize the rotation of the sugar granules, because right now it's kind of like they're similar. So I'll search for rotation, search for rotate instances, and then I'll connect it after instance on points. Then this rotation value, I want to randomize it. So I hit Shift A and I look for random value. And then this value here, usually, if I adjust this, you can see it's a decimal point value. So this is a float. So in the random value node, I have to make sure that I'm working with the correct data type, which is a float. Because if you click on it, it says float, you can get integer, boolean, vector. So I'll leave it at float. Then I'll connect this value to rotation. Then I'll come in here and I'll decide what is the minimum value, what is the maximum value. So this is rotation. So the minimum value is going to be 0. The maximum value is going to be 360. And now we have randomized rotation, right? Then we also want to randomize the size. So to randomize the size, we need to access the scale, which is the size. So I'll hit Shift A, then type in scale what? Scale instances. Then I'll connect it after rotate instances. Then I'll add its own random value. So I'll hit Shift A, and then I'll type in random value. So here it is. Then I'll connect this value to the scale. So again, this is also a float. The scale value is a float. So on the random value, the data type needs to be float. So value to scale. Then minimum, well, you could say it could be 0, but I want the minimum to be like 0.2, and then the maximum to be 0.8. Okay. So we have our granules, and then we can come to the distribute points on faces, and then we can adjust this density. So if you want more, increase the density. So instead of 10,000, I could do, let's say, 100,000. And this is what I have, right? You can see. Then we can also do 200 of even 500,000. Do like a crazy value. You can see we have our granules, right? Okay. There's one thing that is happening that I don't like, actually. So let me assign the sugar granules again. When I say I want to separate the children, then reset the children, which is fine. I have forgotten to turn on peak instance. So that's why I'm getting these weird results. So peak instance, turn it on. So we're asking it to look at our collection, right? And in our collection has children. So it separates the children and then it resets them. And then once it does that, of course, we'll set the material and then we drive that instance in here. And then here we tell it to pick an instance. So it's supposed to pick which one it's going to use for each point. Okay, so I think that's a bit better. So we'll stop getting that weird result. Then, so this, I'll select this 2, and then I'll hit Shift P, and then I'll hit F2. So this is for the sugar granules. Okay, so I'm separating this because we're going to have one for the coconut pieces. So let me move these. Am I here? Let me move this on their own on this other side. Let me just organize, right? So I would like this to look at the coconut pieces, and I have several. Okay, so I have the shred, I have 3. So Shift A, and then again collection info, and then I'll also create its own set material, then connect instance to geometry. Then in the collection I'll choose coconut pieces, and then I'll tell it I want the children to be separate and I want you to reset the children. And then I'll direct this to instance. We have our coconut pieces, right? But they're a bit weird, right? So they're a bit strange in a way. So we'll fix that, but this is just to ensure that it's working, right? So this is for the coconut. So this is Shift P, then F2 to rename. I'm going to call that coconut pieces. Then we have the peanuts. So the funny thing about the peanuts is that it's only one. So I don't think we necessarily have to use collection info. So let's use object info. So Shift A, then let's search for object info. There it is. Then Shift A. Then we're going to add a set material. Okay. Then we'll connect geometry to geometry. Then we'll define what object. I want it to be the peanut pieces. So if I scroll down, so this peanut. Then I want to direct this here to instance. So I just want to replace that connection. Okay. And peanut is not being seen. Let me go to wireframe. It's not being seen. I've also noticed that the axis for this is at the 3D cursor. I think it's because of peak instance. Yeah, so I found the issue. So then I can insert solid. So I think to make this more seamless, because here we're using collection, let's just use a collection info for this as well, so that you don't have to keep in mind that you have to turn off peak instance. So let's replace that real quick. So Shift A, collection info, because I want it to be a seamless setup, so I'll delete this. Then I'll connect instances to geometry. I'll turn this back on, that is peak instance. Then I'll define the peanut pieces collection. I'll say I want to separate and reset children. And then of course I'll define the material later. Then with this selected, I can hit Shift P and then F2 to rename, and I'll call this peanut pieces. So if I look at this, I think it's fine. Okay, so we have our peanut pieces. So I feel like the peanut pieces are very tiny. So I like them to be larger than this. So I can select the peanut, tab in to it. Then let's go to wireframe. Here it is. So I'll hit A. Then I can scale it up and it should scale the instances. I can tab out. So it's a bit bigger, which I like. Okay. So with this setup, we have something that allows us to choose what we want to be distributed on the surface of the chocolate ball. So we have the sugar granules, we have the coconut pieces, we have the peanut pieces as well. Oops, so there. So it's a very clean setup, I'd say. It gives you more control over what particular piece you want to distribute on the chocolate ball, right? So I'd say that our object is set up and we do have our camera, right? Okay. So that's how we distribute the peanuts, the sugar granules, and the coconut pieces on the surface. If it bothers you that the axis is at the origin, for example, in my case, that's what I have for the chocolate ball and for the chocolate ball pieces. So if this bothers you, what you can do, you can select these two. So I'll select the pieces and the ball. So Shift select, then I'll right click and I will say set origin, and then I'll choose origin to geometry. Then it should update. Don't make the mistake. So for example, if I undo, don't make the mistake of selecting one, like the chocolate ball, then right clicking set origin, then origin to geometry. You're going to notice that it doesn't quite work the way that you expect. And this is because, remember, if I go to the modifier, this display is still active. So whatever change I make, this kind of updates, and that's why we're getting that strange change, that disconnect between the two meshes. So just select both of them at the same time, and that should fix your issue. So in my case, I'll select both of them at the same time, then I'll right click, set origin, origin to geometry, and it is a flawless fix, right? So if I select these two and adjust, I guess, right? So the camera setup this is not like the final thing, the final angle that I'll use, but I can still use it for lighting. So what I'm going to do is I already have a camera, right? So I'll just hit Shift A. Actually, before I hit Shift A, I'll select the render collection. Select the render collection. Shift A. Then I'll go to light, 3-point lighting, and then it should be added, right? That is the key, the fill, and the back. So then I'll switch to rendered mode. And this is what I have. And then if I zoom out, you can see the lights are far away. I want to bring them closer to the object. So I'll start reducing the height. So they're really far away, as you can see. So I'll reduce the height. So let's say something like that. Then I'll also reduce the distance. Then I'll also reduce the height once more. And the distance again. Remember to hold down Shift if you want to make small increments. Then I'll reduce the base energy to something really small. Let's say like 3. Let me get into my camera view. 3 or 4. Like 3 or 4. So now that we have that, I move this. I can turn off all of my lights apart from the key. So with the key, I want it to be active, and then I can go to its settings and I can choose, if I change it from 4 and increase it, it becomes crazy. So I think 4 is fine. Then I can leave the spread as it is. If I get out of the camera view, okay, the size, play around with the size, see what you get. So I'll have like something like that. Then I can have the fill. So I'll turn on the fill. The fill is supposed to fill in the shadows, but I feel like this is a bit much. So let's do like 1, the fill. And then we have the back. So I'll turn that on as well. And then I'll also set it to 1. Okay. So this is not like my final lighting. This is just supposed to help me texture for now. And then once I place the objects, then I'll decide how I want the lighting to be. So what I'm going to do is I just bring this down. Right? I'm going to bring this down. Then I'll create a new window. So I'll come over here to the bottom left. When I get those crosshairs, I'll click and hold, then drag. Now I have 2 views. So this view is going to help me see my material. Here I'll minimize that as well. So here I'll change this to the shader editor. Then I'll just squish this. So what I'm going to do is I want to add a world. So in the shader editor, next to where you change the editor options, we do have the object option. So I want to change it to world. So I want to use an HDRI to be placed around the scene so that can get more realistic lighting. So I'll hit Shift A and I'll search for environment texture. Then with this selected, I'll hit Control T. So I'm able to hit Control T, and what pops up is the texture coordinate and the mapping, and that's because in my preferences, I do have the Node Wrangler option turned on, similar to how I hit Shift A and I went to light 3-point lighting. So if I go to Edit, Preferences, then we go to Add-ons, I have the Node Wrangler active, and I have the Tri-Lighting active. So Tri-Lighting is for the 3-point lighting system, that is the key, the fill, and the back, and then the Node Wrangler for Control T, right? And then we have under key map, we have spacebar action search, which is what I've been using throughout. Then I want to load up an environmental texture. So I'll click on open. Then I'll browse to where that texture is. Then I want to use this one. So I've downloaded these HDRIs from Polyhaven. So I'll just use this, click on open image. And of course, I'm not seeing it because I still have to connect this color to background. Then I can see it. Okay. So if I look around, I can be able to see it, as you can see. So this is it's a lot. So I'm going to reduce the strength to, let's say, something like 0.4, even 0.2. I think that's fine. And then, of course, we can come back later and make our changes. Okay. So Now at the top here, I can go back to object. So from world to object. So here I've selected under scene objects, I've selected my chocolate ball. So that's what I'm going to be creating a material for. So new, and I'll call this chocolate ball. Okay. So one thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to isolate it. Maybe. Actually, no, because we're going to get a weird representation. So let me work with it as it is. And yeah. So we'll start by working on the color for the chocolate ball. So the chocolate ball is brown, of course. So I'll hit Shift A and then I'll search for a noise texture. Then I'll hit Control T to get the node wrangler. Then in the texture coordinate, I'm going to change from generated to object. Then I'll hit Control Shift and then click on the noise. So I'm holding down Control Shift and click on the noise texture so that I can preview what the noise texture is showing me. Then I can increase the scale to, let's say, 50. Take it higher, let's say 150. And I can take it even higher than that. So let's say 450. So I'm using the noise is because I want color variation. Yes, the chocolate is brown, but I don't want the color to be similar throughout. Like if I choose a particular shade of brown, I don't want it to use that particular shade of brown. I want it to kind of use maybe between a lighter and a darker brown, but with subtle changes, right? So for that, I'll use a color ramp to remap those colors. So I'll hit Shift A, color ramp. Then I'll connect it after the noise texture. Then in the color ramp, with these tops, I'll select the black one and I'll set the color to 7F, 5E, that's 5E, 4, 5FF. And then on this other side, I'll select that stop and I'll set that color to 8F, 6A, 6A for E, FF. And then I'll connect this color to the base color of the principal BSDF. Then of course we're not previewing through the principal BSDF, so I can hold down Control Shift click. Then we can see we do have the brown color, right? So from my looking at references, I noticed that for some of these chocolate balls, they do have like subtle dots that are of a lighter brown. So I would like to introduce those dots and then have those dots to be a lighter color and then also maintain this color that we have. So to do that, I'm going to make use of another texture node. So I'll hit Shift A and I'll look for Voronoi texture. Then I'll connect this vector output to the vector input of the Voronoi texture. So I want them to share the texture coordinate and the mapping node. Then I'll hit Control Shift click. Then I'll hit Shift A and I'll add a color ramp, and that color ramp will appear after the Voronoi. Then I'll adjust these nodes, and of course you can see these tops, there's nothing happening, and that's because the scale is quite low. Not to say that nothing is happening, something is happening, but we're not seeing our results. So I'll make this, let's say 50. And then if I adjust, you start seeing some results, right? We'll start adjusting this, and maybe I could make the noise, let's say, to 50. Then we could start trimming down these dots. I'm adjusting. I want the dots to be huge. I want them to be there, but not overwhelming. So let's say 1,000. Okay, that's too much. Let's do 500. So let me zoom in, see. So I could try and adjust the detail. Actually, no, let me leave it at 0. Then let me just play around with this. So I'm adjusting the white and the black. We can do a 750 for the scale. I don't want it to be too much. I want to make sure that we have the dots, but they're not too many. Okay, something like that. So what I want to do is I have the dots, but I want this to also be visible. So because if I preview through the Principled BSDF, I'm able to see these results, right? So I'm going to use a mix. So I'll hit Shift A, then we'll use a mix color. And how this works is I'll use this Voronoi texture as a mask. So where there is white, I want to see this brown. Where there is black, I want to see the color, right? So the factor is the mask. So I'll connect this color ramp to the factor. Then A is whatever is black. So the first value is always 0. 0 is black. So whatever is black, I want it to have the lighter color, and then whatever is white, I want it to have this brown that we have. So I'll connect this color to this color. Then I'll connect these results to the Principled BSDF. Then we'll preview through the Principled BSDF. And we'll see that we have these white dots. If you preview through the color ramp, you'll be able to see the black dots. But of course, we can't see them because we have the peanuts. But they're there, hiding. So let me hide these pieces. You can see we have the dots, right? So I'll change this color. So with this color, I'm going to set it to a lighter brown. That lighter brown is going to be B58562FF. Okay, and there we can see that light color. Then we can bring back the pieces, right? So it's supposed to be there, but it's not supposed to be like crazy values. Now that we have that, I'd like for these dots that we have created to have some surface bump. So for that, I'll hit Shift A, and then I'm going to search for bump. Then I'll add a bump, and then I'm going to use this to create those surface bumps. So we'll direct the color option from the color ramp to the height of the bump, then the normal of the bump to the normal of the Principled BSDF. Then you'll see we are kind of getting holes, but I don't want that. So I'll come to the bump and I will choose the invert option. And then we'll reduce the strength. So it's supposed to be very subtle. So maybe something like that. Just tiny, just a tiny bump, right? Because remember, these surfaces are not always smooth and perfect. So something like that. Okay. So I like that. That's fine. So now that we have the bump, the next thing in the material would be the roughness. So we have our lighting, we have our environment. So I would like to kind of define the roughness. So if I reduce this value, it comes like really shiny, right? But usually with chocolate, you have sections that are shiny, you have sections that are diffuse. So I want us to introduce that. And for that to be possible, we'd have to introduce a noise. So let me first of all organize this. So this is controlling our dots, so the colored dots. So I'll hit Shift P and I'll rename this. So I'll call it surface dots. And then this, I'm going to call it Shift P. I'm going to call it chocolate color, so that it's a bit more easy for you to understand. And then, okay, this is the bump, and this is where we kind of mix these two together using the surface dots as a mask. Okay, so now I want us to work on the roughness. So I'll hit Shift A, then I'll add a noise. Then I'll have it use its own texture coordinate and mapping. So I'll select the noise, Control T, then Control Shift T on the noise to preview. So what I want is, I want to have a particular pattern. So like some ring pattern, but not like an actual ring. So on the scale, that is on the mapping node, I'll set the value to 10. So now we get this pattern, right? And this pattern is going to allow us to create variation in our roughness. Then I can hit Shift A, and then I can add a color ramp, which I'm going to connect it after the noise, which is supposed to create contrast. So if I move the whites, you can see what happens. We have that. So then I'll connect this color to roughness. So my roughness, I'd set it to 0.245. So I'll connect this color to roughness. Then if I preview this, because I have this noise texture, you will see that now there's some sections that are shiny and there's some sections that are diffuse. So if I move this back, you can see things become a bit more diffuse, and this as well, right? If I push the black more in, you can see it becomes more shiny. So here, I need to make an adjustment. So I want it to be shiny, but not to be shiny throughout. I want the roughness to be broken up. So something like this. So if I look through the camera, we have some good variation. So what we'd have had by default was this, very shiny with a roughness of 0.245. But if I introduce this to the roughness, we now break it up, make it more interesting. So that's what that does. So this is, select this. I think I should have used object instead of generated. I think I messed up there, yeah. But you could still leave it at generated. It's still going to give you a good result. But let me just use the object. Then I'll set the noise to, let's say, 150. I think 5 is also fine for this, yeah. Or even lower. Then we can preview. I like this one better. But you can use object if you like. But you have to come in and make some changes. In regard to the scale, so I've used object. So with the generated, the scale being at 5 is fine. You can preview this. So it's kind of broken up, right? Another thing we could do is just after this mix, we could add, hit Shift A, we could add a brightness and contrast if you wanted the brown to be a bit more richer, so we could add brightness / contrast just after the mix before we kind of connect it to the color. Then we can reduce the contrast. Then with the brightness, also reduce that. I want it to be a really richer brown, because if you compare with what we had before and what we have now, so I like this better. It even makes this roughness pop a bit more. Then I can select this, then Shift P, then I'll call it breaking up the roughness. So there we have that. Then of course finally would be the displacement, because this surface is quite uniform, so I'd like for it to be displaced. So we're going to, first of all, we'll go to options, then we'll go to settings, and then under displacement I'll change it from bump only to displacement and bump. Okay, that's in the options. So then let me minimize this. I'll hit Shift A, and then I'll search for a noise. Okay, then again Control T, then I'll make sure it's using objects. Then I'll preview, Control Shift click, Shift A, use a color ramp. Then what I want to do is I want to increase the scale. Maybe something there, then I can adjust this. So what I'm looking for is I want to use the white parts to create like surface bumps, right? So something like that. Say, you play around with the rotation if you don't like the default results. So that's what I've done. I've adjusted rotation. Then we can add a displacement. Then I'll come over here, then the color output, I'll connect it to height. And then this displacement output, if I bring this down, I'll connect it to the displacement input of the material output. So displacement to displacement. Then of course it's going to be crazy. So if I take this back up and then Control Shift click on the principal BSDF, this is what I get. And it's a bit much. So the scale is a lot. This is crazy. So let's say I change it from 0.01 to 0.05. That's still a bit much. 0.05. Maybe 0.1. Still a bit much. I could select the chocolate ball. Could add a subdivision surface. So let me turn on the pieces so that I could see how the subdivision surface affects the pieces. So go to the modifiers, generate subdivision surface. Okay, so I just want to see if makes it act weirdly. I could also do the same here, add a modifier, generate subdivision surface. So it seems like some of them are floating. So I could select this, hit S, scale down. Actually, I should do that in the solid mode. So S, scale down a bit. But I think they're fine. They're intersecting. So I don't think I need to change it. No, I think they're fine. Even with the subdivision, still fine. Okay. Yeah, so it's still fine. So let me go back to Z, render. So I'm trying to look at the displacement. So if I preview this, you can make your adjustments. So I want to make it obvious, but this is really, really crazy in regards to the height. So I need to come back here to the scale and make a few adjustments. I feel like here we do have the surface bumps. Maybe let's say 2.5, right? So if I overdo it, it kind of goes a bit crazy. You can spread it out if you'd like. So with all of that done, let's jump into the principled BSDF. The principled BSDF, I'd like to change a few things. So we've dealt with the color, the roughness, the bump, and of course on the material output, we've dealt with the displacement, right? So I'd like to go to the, first of all, the IOR. The IOR can be at 1.5. That is generally the index of refraction of chocolate, or even 1.55, right? But I think 1.5 is enough. Then we can go to subsurface. So when it comes to the subsurface scattering, I'm going to use a really tiny value. Let's say 0.07. So 0.075. What I'm going to use. I can't use like a really high value because this starts looking a bit unrealistic, I'd say. It's a bit much. So I want it to have subsurface scattering, but I don't want it to be too much. And of course, the higher I go, the redder it becomes. That's because of the radius, the RGB. So the R, which is the red, is the one that is really prominent. So it's going to be more red. So I'm going to use 0.075. So I'm trying to make it be as realistic as possible. Then we'll need to create a material for the, right now we're looking at the peanuts. So I'll select the peanut. Then I'll go to the material. Then I'll click on new. Then of course here it is. So the top here I can rename. Just call it peanut. Or we can rename it from here. Just double click and rename. So with this peanut, I like for it to, first of all, usually with these elements, sometimes they do touch. Like when they interact with the chocolate, you might start seeing like a bit of the chocolate on the surface of, let's say, the peanut. So I would like for that to be evident. But before we do that, I'd like to set up the color for the peanut. So I'll hit Shift A, then add a noise. And then I'll hit Control T. Then, because we're not seeing this, if I hit Control Shift and click on the noise texture, we're not seeing it in the preview. We could jump into, so if I bring this up, we could jump into the geometry node editor. Then I could select the pieces, right? So let me get rid of the subdivision surface because it was hiding the effect of the geometry nodes. So select the pieces, then over here in the peanut, I can click on this section and then I'll choose peanut. Then I should start seeing what I need to see. Then now if I select the peanut, now I can make my changes, right? So this is what we have. We can increase the scale and we can reduce the scale. I think I'll just make it 15. I think that's enough. Then I'll hit Shift A and add a color ramp. So I'm going to use the color ramp to remap the colors. So in this first stop, I'll click on it, then I will change this color. I'm going to make it D1BA94FF. Then on this other stop, F2D8ABFF. So we have a peanut color. Then I can direct it to the base color. I'd like for the peanuts to have a bit of the chocolate, right? So the peanut, I could maybe give it like a little bit of subsurface scattering, like maybe 0.002. So this is the peanut, right? One thing I could do is I could select the chocolate ball. Then I want to take a few things from here. So I want to take, I bring this down. I want to take this color and this principled BSDF. So those two. So I'll select this color, set up, hold down Shift, select the principled BSDF. Then Control C to copy. Then I will go to the peanut. I'll select the peanut and then I'll paste Control V. So then I'll connect this color to color. And if I preview it, you can see they do kind of match. What I want to do is I want to create a noise that's going to be a mask. So I'll hit Shift A, Noise, Texture. I'll place it at the top here. Then I'll zoom in. Then I'll just add its own texture coordinate and mapping. So Control T. And then I'll preview it. Then I'll hit Shift A to add a colorum. And that's going to be used to add contrast. Then I'll reduce the scale of this. Let's say 2. Then if I start adjusting this, you can now start seeing. So what I want is the areas that are white. I want to see the color of the peanut. The area that is black, I want to see a bit of chocolate, like some hints of chocolate. So we'll add a mix, but this time it's not a mixed color, it's a mixed shader. So we're going to mix these two shaders together. So I'll hit Shift A and then I'll search for mixed shader. Then this noise that we've just created, we'll connect it as the factor because it's the mask. Then the areas that are black, you want to see the chocolate. The areas that are white, you want to see the peanut color. So for the peanut color, that's the second shader option. And then for the principled BSDF, that's the mix. That's the first option, sorry, not the mix. The first shader, because that is black. Then I'll connect the mix shader to the surface input. So we'll have like hints of like darker parts that seems like, this peanut pieces kind of interacted with the chocolate surface a bit. So if I was to reorder this, I would bring this down, not bring this up like so that we have our chocolate color, and then here we have, if I hit Shift P, this is the peanut color. And then, of course, we have the mix shader that combines both of these two principled BSDF shaders, right? So I'll call this mask. Then I'll jump back into the geometry nodes. So before I do that, I'll go to the coconut. I'll select one of them. Then I'll go to material, new material, and I'll rename it. I'll call it coconut. Then I'll select the choco ball pieces. Then come in here, I'll assign the coconut material. Then I'm going to redirect this set material to instance so that it replaces the coconut pieces, or rather the peanut pieces, right? So now we have the coconut pieces. So this is what we have. So I could increase the count and the like. I could come in here, make this be like 1,000,000. So if I do it times 2, it becomes 1,000,000. One thing that I would like to introduce here is line rotation to vector. So then I'll direct this rotation to this rotation, this normal to vector. The reason we want to have this is because I want to make sure that each of the instances that are created follows the position, scale, and rotation values of each point that it has been assigned to. Here, I want it to consider the objects or the point's rotation. So if a point's rotation is, let's say, 90, 30, 40 on XYZ, I want that instance, the coconut piece here, to also follow that as well. So I'll connect the rotation to rotation, then the normal to vector, right? And then this to rotation. And then that kind of adjusts whatever we had before. So before then, that's what we had. Then now, this is what we have. Okay. Then you can come in, and of course I chose the Z axis, but you can try the X, see what that gives you. Okay, you can try the Y, then you can try the Z. Make this even bigger, so let's do 3,000,000. Then we can see what works for this by using the align rotation to vector. So I could say I could use this. If I change this to wireframe, right? They kind of seem to be very thin. So we can add a modifier like a solidify. But before I do that, let me reduce the number so that it doesn't make things crazy. So I could do like 3,000. Then I could add a solidify. So that's under generate, solidify. Okay, so let me actually isolate this. So let's make this 0. That is the thickness. Then I'll hold down shift. Make this value 0.00001. Really tiny, right? A really tiny value. Let me make it even more tinier than this. Very small. Then we can select this. So let me exit isolation mode. Then we can select this. Shift select this. Shift select this. Then exit isolation mode. Then let's select this and then enter isolation mode. So what I want is I want to select this. Hold down shift, select this. Then finally hold down shift to select the last one. Make this the parent. Or rather not even the parent, the last selected. Then go to object, link / transfer data. Then we will say copy modifiers. Then they all should have the solidify, right? So now if I exit isolation mode and then select the pieces, and then let's make this, let's say that, right? So now they look a bit more interesting. Then let's use the Z. So now this looks more true to form. They look less flat. You can take this back. That is the If I disconnect the normal, you can be able to adjust the factor, see what happens. You can also adjust the seed if you don't like the ordering. So I'll leave it at Z. But if you like the X, Y, let's make this like 3 million. Personally, I prefer the Z. So I'll just use the Z. Then for the material, for the coconut, that's very simple. So if I select this, I just need to assign one. So you just need the color to be white. That's all. So now if I preview, so I've not changed a thing. The default is white. So if I preview this, you can see what we have. But remember, with the coconut, you're going to need lots and lots of, if we select the pieces, you're going to need really high density. So more than this. So if I do like ×2, that's 6 million. So you'll need a lot. You also need to come in here, see what works in regards to aligning the rotation on whichever axis you feel gives you the best results, the most realistic. I think for me, it's between the X and the Z. I'd choose either of these. So you need to make this have like a really, really crazy value. Then we have the sugar. So for the sugar, we need to select, minimize this. Here in the geometry nodes, we can connect the sugar granules. So replace that connection. So that's what we have. This is a lot. 6 million is a lot. So I'll do, let's say, 1 million. Then for the granules, I'll select one of them. Click on new to create a new material. Or you can go here, do the same thing. So I bring this down so that we can rename. So sugar. So here I'll leave it to be white, but sugar is transparent. Or rather, not transparent, it allows light to pass through. So we'll increase the transmission. And then, of course, we're not seeing a thing. So we'll need to select the sugar pieces. And then the choco ball pieces, sorry, not the sugar pieces. And then we'll go to the geometry nodes. And then we'll choose sugar. You can see it does look like sugar, definitely. Looks quite good. Then if I select the sugar granule material, then what we can do, we can also, in regards to roughness, we can reduce the roughness. There we have our sugar. I think the sugar was the easiest to create. The other ones have a bit more, going on. So you can go to the pieces, the chocobo pieces, and you can increase the density. But with the sugar, don't overdo it. If you overdo it, because they'll start intersecting, then you'll start getting a huge chunks of black. So let's say you could do like 2.5 million. So right now we're not having an issue. So this is interchangeable. Our setup is very interchangeable. So we can connect the coconut pieces. Then you can connect the, if I make this larger, you can connect the peanut pieces. So you adjust based on need, right? So if you need a particular element, you adjust it. I think here, in the peanut pieces, I do have like a coconut shred. So it's, let me take it back here. Yeah, so it was misbehaving, right? So, setup is good. So with the sugar granules, we weren't having any issues in regards to things like the rotation. This is something that I introduced because of the coconut pieces. Because if I disconnect this, for the sugar, it doesn't have like this crazy drastic change, but for the coconut, and that's where the issues begin, right? So this aligned rotation to vector was to remedy the rotation of the shreds, the coconut shreds that we've created. Let us create the material for this piece of wood. So first of all, I'd like to resize it. So I'll go to the top view, and in the top view, I'll actually go back to solid mode. And then the camera is here, so I'd like to scale this down on the Y. So SY, just make it smaller, like so. Then I can tab out. Okay. So then, with this selected, you can go to the material option and click on new, and I'll call this wood. Then I can get into the rendered mode. So for the wood, I'll hit Shift A and then search for noise, texture, and then I'll select this, Control T. Then I'll change the texture coordinate to object. So object to vector. Then Control Shift click to preview. Then I'll change this scale to 50. And then I'll come to the scale for the mapping, that is, I'll change it on the Y to, let's say, 20. So what I'm looking for is a wood pattern. Then I'll introduce a color ramp. So Control A, color ramp, and I'll need to add contrast first. And then I'll also use it to color the wood. So now if I connect this color to base color and then Control Shift on the principled BSDF, and then we can get into the camera view. So this is what we're seeing, right? So for wood, I'll click on this first top and assign a color. Give it like a yellow color, just like a slight yellow tint, right? Something like that. Then I'll click on the white one, click on color option, select that as well. Then for this stop on the left, I'm going to make it slightly darker, right? Something like that. Then the next thing would be roughness. So I'll increase the roughness to, let's say, 0.6. I don't want it to be too shiny. Then the next thing is the bump, surface displacement. So I'll hit Shift A, add a bump. Then I'll connect this noise factor output to the height input of the bump, and the normal output of the bump to the normal input of the principled BSDF. Then we can produce the strength. At this point, you will say, yeah, we do have wood. Then I'd like for us to create a material for the table. So for the table, I'd like it to be like a tablecloth. So I've downloaded a PBR material for that. But from that material, I'll only use 3 of the images. I'll use one for color, one for roughness, and the other for displacement. I need to select the table. Then I need to click on this. Remember when we went to the drop down and then we turned on selectable? Remember, I made it unselectable. So I need to make it selectable again. So click on that selectable option. So it was off like so. it was on, meaning I couldn't select it, but now I want to turn it off. So now I can select this. Then we can go to the material, call it new. Then we can call it table cloth. So I only need to use 3 channels. There's the base color, the roughness, and the normal for the bump. So to do that, I will link the exact PBR texture that I downloaded in the description. So hit Shift A. Now search for image texture, then Control T, right? So by default, this connects to UV. So because I used a plane, by default, any object that comes with Blender is already UV unwrapped. So I don't need to UV unwrap it. So in terms of the texture coordinate, instead of using object in this instance, I'm going to use UV because it already has UV maps. So I'll click on open in the image texture. Then I'll browse to where I have that set up. So here are the images. So what I want to select is this one for color. Now click open. Then I'll connect color to base color. And then of course it looks a bit funky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this scale and I'll change the scale value to, let's say, 20 by 20 by 20. If I zoom in, you're getting a really nice texture, right? As you can see, it looks really nice. Then we need to bring in another one. So I'm going to select this image texture. Then on the keyboard, Control Shift D to duplicate while still maintaining that connection, right? So Control Shift D. Then this one is going to be for roughness. So let me move this to this side. So I will click on this folder icon. Then the one for roughness is called gloss. So I'll select it. Click on open. Then I can preview it. So this is what we have. If you want to add more contrast, you can hit Shift A. And then you can add a color ramp after it. Like so. Then we can add more contrast to this, right? But let's first of all connect it. See what we have. So connect it to the roughness. See what we have. Then you can come in and make your changes. Okay, so if I preview this and I connect it directly to the roughness without the color ramp, so I don't think it's necessary to have the color ramp. But we can have it there just in case we need to make some changes. So if I preview, so I don't think it's necessary. So I can just delete this. So I can just select this, hit Control X so that it deletes that node but still maintains connection to the roughness. Then I can Control Shift click on the principled BSDF and we do have our preview. Then again select this image texture, Control Shift D. Then this is for the bump. So Shift A, bump. Then I'll connect the color to height. Then I'll have to load the image that I need. So click on the folder. I'll use displacement. This one. I'll click on open image. Then connect this normal to normal. Then we can preview the bump. Control Shift. Then reduce the strength. Sometimes it is a bit much. Then Control Shift, click on that. Right. So we do have the cloth, the tablecloth. So if I jump into my camera, we have a nice tablecloth. If you'd like to change the color of the tablecloth, that's really simple. You need to go to the connection that you've made from the image texture with the color map driving into the base color. Hit Shift A. and then look for hue saturation value and connect it after that map. Then you need to adjust the hue. Then you will get a different color based on what it is that you like. You can pick from that, right? So personally, I like 0.5, so I'll leave it there. Maybe with the saturation, let's see what happens when I make the saturation 2. So maybe I could use something like that. Maybe let's say 1.5, right? So something like that. If I adjust the hue again, you get a different color. So I'll leave it at that. Let's start by framing our elements, or rather organizing these elements in a way that visually it looks more appealing. So if I get into the camera view, this is what we have. So I'd like to change the camera angle. So I'll go to view, and then I'll turn on camera to view. Then I'll minimize this. Actually, let me go back to item. Then I'll start, of course, adjusting. So I'll make use of the rotate and just start doing it myself manually, like so. So I want it to be somewhere here. Okay, so let me just move in slowly. So I want to have the other chocolate balls, one on the left, one on the right. And then, of course, I'd have some other ones here, some other ones in the back. And then we can activate depth of field to create more interest. The setup that we have in regards to our elements, we have the chocolate ball, we have the pieces, right? So the chocolate ball pieces, that has the coconut, it has the sugar, and then it has the peanuts. So I'll select the pieces, then I'll hold down shift, then select the chocolate ball. So let me select the pieces from here, then I'll come here. Actually, I've messed up my framing. Let me just go back a bit. So something like that. Then I'll go to view, turn off under view, camera to view, turn it off. So what I want is I want to select the chocolate pieces and then hold down shift and then select the ball. So I've selected it from here. So as you can see in the collection, the chocolate ball has the more like orange, the more lighter orange color. So I'll do like a Ctrl P, and then I'll do an object, keep transform. Then I'll notice that the chocolate ball is the parent. So what I want is I want to be able to duplicate, right? So I'll select the chocolate ball, and then I'll open up the hierarchy, then hold down shift, select the last object, which is the pieces, right? And then I'll go to the top view. So I'll hit set, solid, top. Then I'll hit shift D. Now move this. Shift D. Now move this. Okay. One thing about this is if I select this one on the left, on the right, sorry, and I select the ball as well, then I can rotate. So I can hit R, just rotate. So it looks a bit different. Then we have this. So to find what is selected, you'll notice that this inverted triangle will be highlighted. So that means that's the one that you've selected. So hold on shift, select that, then I'll rotate this just a bit. Then if I look through my camera, then I render, this is what we have. So they look kind of different, right? Okay. So then what I want to do is I want to select all of these apart from the table. So what I'm going to do in the table, I'll disable selection. So I don't want to select it. So I'll disable that selection option. Then I'll select this and then hold down Control to select the wood surface, because I can't hold down shift. If I hold down shift, it's going to select the table. So shift, select the chocolate balls and then the wood surface. Okay, so let me move them up to see that it moves. Yes, it does. Then I'll go to the top, then set solid. I'll do a shift D, this, but notice it moves without the pieces, right? So that's fine because I want the other chocolate balls to not have the pieces, so that's fine. So if you want to have the pieces, let me undo this. If you want to have the pieces when you duplicate, make sure you select like everything. Like you open up the hierarchy, select everything like that. Then now if I do Shift D to move with everything, as you can see. So what I didn't select was the wood surface, so that's what is left behind. Okay, so you can hold on Control, select the wood surface, then do a Shift D, and then move this. But we can move it though. We can do this just in case we need that. So let me go to the camera view and see what we have. So this is what we have, and then I'll do a Shift D again, and then I'll move this to the side. Right here. I'm using the move tool. Okay. Then I'll do another Shift D, accept, then move it. Move this here. Then I can go to the top view. Then this one close to the camera. Let me do that. The ones in close to the camera, what I can do, you see this collection called render, I can make it unselectable so that I can just click and drag. And because my wood surface is also, or the table is also unselectable, then I can be able to easily make changes. So I just selected that from the top view, click and drag, and then I'll get into my camera. And what I wanted to do was just to rotate it a bit, just to create variation like that, right? And then we can do the same for this one on the other side. So if I go to the top view, click and drag, select, click and drag, and then look through my camera, and then I can rotate it just a bit like that, right? Then we can render. It kind of looks similar, which is kind of, well, it's boring. It's not that interesting, right? So we need to introduce a bit of variation. So I'll focus more on these ones here. So I want the middle one to be the one with the sugar. So again, look at the one that has the inverted triangle highlighted. So I'll go to my geometry node. So I'll open this hierarchy, the chocolate ball pieces. So notice that here under the geometry nodes, it says 12. That means 12 objects are sharing this geometry node. So I need to break that connection. So there's this icon over here. I'll click on that, and this is on its own. And then select this one, and then disconnect it from sharing. And then with this one, I'll make it use the like the peanut pieces, right? So I'll just make it large, and then the peanut pieces instance, right? And then for this other one, if I select this, I will break that connection, and then I'll make this coconut pieces, right? If I deselect, that's what we have. So when it comes to the coconut pieces, I'll make them a lot. Right now they're 2.5 million. I'll make them, let's say, 5 million. And then we have this was at the back. I'm going to basically turn off the geometry nodes. So I could get rid of the geometry nodes like that, right? That would be weird. So I just need to open up that hierarchy and then turn it off in the viewport. That is in the outliner. I'm turning it off in the viewport and in the renderer so that I can't see it. Also this as well. So that's this one, and the pieces, turn that off. This one as well. So instead of deleting, what I did is just turning it off. Of course, I should have duplicated without, but I want it to be there in case I want to make any changes, because you never know what decisions you make. So it's better if I just have it there than not have it there. So I just need to turn the displaying from the render and the viewport. So this is this one, chocolate ball 6. So turn it off, and this as well. So 6, right? Not the ball itself, that is here. Okay, and then for this, I could have I want this one, the one that's a bit hint, to have the coconut. So I'll break the connection, and I'll come over here and give it the coconut pieces instance. Then give it a high number again, that 5 million, or even like, let's say that was 2.5 million times 4, it's 10 million. Then I'll select the camera, so I'll minimize all of this. I'll select the camera, so I'll go to render, make it selectable again, select the camera, and in the camera settings, I'd like to introduce depth of field. So I'll click on depth of field, and notice that, this disappears. Actually, before I do that, there's one thing I'd like to change, which is if I go to the shader editor, we have the world. The strength of the background is quite low, it's 0.2. So I'd like to make it, let's say 0.8, something like that. So now it brightens up the scene, the shot. So 8 for that. So then now I can select camera. I can go to the camera settings. I'll leave the focal length as it is. What I want to change is the depth of field. Then I can select an object. So this, I selected the light, sorry. So let me choose one, the chocobo, the one in the middle. Then we can kind of adjust the f-stop, so I can increase it. Let's say, let me select 20. Okay, let's do 5. I want this to be in focus. Let's do 40. I kind of like this. I think it looks okay. It looks great. I didn't want this to be in focus, so that's fine. Maybe I could make it lower. Let's say 32. So that looks pretty nice. I also feel like my lighting is it's kind of okay. I thought I would need to change it, but I kind of like it. If I go back to solid mode and bring this down, I take this back to 3D viewport. I kind of thought I would come in here and change my lighting. But I kind of like it in a way. Oh, messed up the camera view. So let me make the camera unselectable. So yeah, so I thought I would need to come in here and maybe change a few of this, but I feel like it's kind of okay. What I need to do is I need to render a frame, or we could also, before I render, in the render settings, we do have the color management. We have the display. I'm using RGB. View, choose filmic. Let's see how that looks like. Normally I don't like using filmic because here it makes it more yellowish. I was using AGX. It's a bit more to what I like. Then the look, let's say I use Filmic straight out, then high contrast. Yeah, actually this looks good. Let's do medium high contrast. Let's compare it with AGX. The only difference is that the Filmic makes it look more, gives it like a yellowish tint, which makes it look more vibrant, I guess. More of like an outdoor, like it's out. There's a lot of sunlight coming in. See what very high contrast gets us. It's a bit much for me. High contrast between this and AGX. I think I prefer AGX. It gives like colors that I want, these rich saturated colors. So I'll keep it at AGX, but I'll just recommend that you use whatever it is that you feel like it's gonna kind of meet the look that you're envisioning for your work. So for me, it's AGX. If I choose punchy, that's really dark. So AGX high contrast was very high contrast. I think high contrast is good. Because Filmic, I don't like that yellowish tint. Again, this is subjective, so experiment, do whatever you like. So I could render this out. So I could just go to render image. So this is how the render looks like, and I'm pretty much happy with it. So one of the few things I personally would add is I would jump into the compositing editor, and I would add things like a vignette and also a bit of chromatic aberration, and then render it out. But I also feel like this is also good. So thank you for checking out this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.